back to another episode of Into the Word, your weekly bite-sized dose of Bible with me, Pastor Jonty, and my co-host, Rev Ness.
Hello.
How are things?
Well, I'm a bloody sloth.
Are you?
Yes, I am, and I hate to. Gym instructor sloth. Would you have thought that? When you at first glance, you wouldn't think that, right?
Oh, yeah.
You think, oh, active chick. She's out about. She's up early at the crack of dawn doing the thing. But that's not. That's the trickery of sloth. But I've just jumped all down your throat in 25 seconds without us talking about what we're doing. Glittering Vices.
Yeah.
And we're looking at this book, at the 7 Deadly Sins and Their Remedies, that has been written by Rebecca Condike DeYoung. So here's the book if you're watching on YouTube. It's a ripper, and we've been working through this, and we've got some cheat sheets. Do you want to hit us up with the Bible passage we're going to look at today, John?
Absolutely. So the first of two Bible passages we're going to look at today is from Romans chapter 12, which, not that I have favourites, but might be my favourite chapter in the Bible, is Romans 12.
Wow.
James chapter 2 also is a banger, but Romans chapter 12, verses 9 to 13. It says, Love must be sincere. Hate what is evil. Cling to what is good. Be devoted to one another in love. Honour one another above yourselves. Never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervour, serving the Lord. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. Share with the Lord's people who are in need, and practice hospitality. That's Romans 12, 9 to 13. So tell me about sloth, Ness. That's Romans 12 kind of paints us a picture of what the opposite of sloth is.
Yeah, like the remedy really, isn't it? It's the spiritual virtue of love.
Yeah.
So, when you think of sloth, you think of that beautiful little character hanging in the trees, and what was the movie that we see the sloth in?
Ice Age.
Oh, is it? And he's doing the thing and he's slow at the bank teller?
Oh, I know what you mean. Zootopia.
And he's just so slow.
Yeah.
And we see him hanging from the tree and he's fluffy and he's got the big fingernails that hang on, Well, my immediate thought of a sloth was somebody that was lazy.
Yeah.
We think of it as laziness, right? Well, and it kind of is in a way, but I was horrified when I took a deep dive because I've realised I have had slothful tendencies in my life, and that is running away from the deep connection with family or running away from the deep connection of friends or spending time with God in my past. And so what I did was busied myself with a whole lot of things that weren't giving meaning to my life, working myself to a point of exhaustion. And then so that at the end of the day, I'd just come home and fall into bed. I was unable to be available to a relationship with whoever I was with at the time because I was so buggered. Isn't that interesting? That's being slothful.
Yeah.
It's like running away and hiding from any opportunity to love or be loved.
Or do the work that's required to show love. So like DeYoung says here in this first little chunk, it's through daily practices and disciplines, whether we feel like doing them or not, that the decision to love is renewed and refreshed and the commitment of love is kept alive. The slothful person, in this sense, is one who resists the effort of doing day after day after day, whatever it takes to keep the bonds of love strong and living and healthy, whether he or she feels particularly inspired about doing it or not. So like you say, it's more than simply being lazy. It's about not being willing to put in the effort required to maintain loving relationships.
Yeah, and think about the dinner table when my kids were teenagers and the kids first had mobile phones. I think it's quite slothful that they would not be a part of wanting to be in the family conversation because all they wanted to do was be on their Instagram or on their phone doing their thing. That's, kids not contributing to family and not engaging because, even an adult too busy on their phone.
Yeah, I was going to jump in and throw under the bus all the not just teenagers, but parents that don't engage with their kids because they're on Facebook. Like it's a thing.
Or whatever, scrolling, looking at stupid stuff.
Yeah.
It's not filling their life up.
Yeah, exactly. So definitely social media has definitely contributed to this.
Yeah.
And for across demographics, it's a thing, being too sucked into your socials to actually be present and Put the effort
engaging
in
with
required to engage with the people around you.
Right,
Yeah.
the people that really do love you,
Yeah.
not those strangers on there that think that they love you. You know, she says this in the book, sloth is the old sinful self, resisting transformation into the new self in Christ. In a sense, then, it's true that slothful people want the easy life. They find detachment from the old selfish nature too difficult, painful and burdensome. So they neglect to perform the actions that would maintain and deepen relationships of love. They harden their hearts towards any change that requires sacrifice or surrender on their part. So true, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's interesting then that because we've spoken about love as being the spiritual virtue, but the formation practice, so the thing that we can do is service.
I know.
So serving others. And I think it's interesting, people that go to church or are familiar with like the way churches work, we kind of have built into church life, not an expectation, but a culture often around service. We serve other people.
Yeah.
Whether it's
Get on the roster.
Yeah. Whether it's in the church itself or in the community.
Yeah.
You know, serving people. And so that's a really great thing that our church institutions have kind of
Adopted.
baked into Christian life.
Yeah, haven't we just?
Part of being a Christian is serving other people. And yeah, so if we find ourselves, but I wonder, I was thinking this earlier, like, is being slothful something that you're able to identify in yourself? I actually don't. I reckon if you are slothful, if that part of your flesh is externalizing, it actually requires someone else. Because maybe I'm wrong, but this feels like something that when you're in it, you're too blinded by it to, like, you don't have the perspective to see.
Well, there's nothing like being a preacher, mate. And every Monday when I sit down to write the next sermon, I think, this will be good for my community.
Yeah.
And the book points straight back at me. And that happens so many times. And so I did sloth thinking, this is for the lazy, overweight people. It's not, it was for me. I am slothful in my detachment. Have been. I've had periods of my life when I've busied myself with extraneous things so that I do not have to be in touch with that member of the family or that person because they've hurt me or whatever. That's being a sloth. And God's got a funny way of, popping the mirror right in the front of you when you think you're writing it for somebody else.
Yeah.
And I just honestly share. So I shared to my community that this is, I experienced this. And it was the last thing I thought that I would relate to. But I do. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you framed it as detachment.
Yeah.
Because when I think about that as opposed to sloth,
I know.
like
slow, like the guy in the movie.
Yeah. But like I immediately will resonate more with this idea of like sometimes detaching a little bit from relationships when they get a little bit hard.
Yeah.
Friendships that you kind of go, this is getting a bit tough.
Yeah.
I'm just going to slowly do the Homer Simpson back away into the hedge and disappear.
Right.
Like that's, probably something that a lot of us can relate to as something that we've done in the past and sometimes feel like it's necessary for our own safety.
Right. And there might be times where that is true.
And there might be, but I think we're pretty good at doing some mental gymnastics sometimes as humans and putting in the line of where our safety is at somewhere that's pretty convenient for us.
Always.
So as an excuse to get out of things.
Because we're a bit slothful.
Absolutely, which is an act of sloth.
Yeah, and it says in the Romans passage, be devoted to one another in love.
Yeah.
And love can be hard sometimes because, even the ones that, you think of members, Christian friends of ours that, they can be tricky, those relationships sometimes, can't they?
Yeah.
We have to be devoted and we need to just put aside differences and love.
Yeah. And no relationship stays the same.
Nope.
For its entirety. Like both parties
Grow.
in every relationship are constantly growing or should be.
You'd hope so.
Yeah. And so
Good ones do.
So it takes work
to
maintain that relationship because the things that you put into those relationships at the beginning, 3 years down the line, 5 years down the line, even 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 10 weeks, like that growing gap, the things that you need to put into that relationship for it to flourish are going to change as the people in that relationship change over time.
Absolutely. And it says in that last point of Romans is practice hospitality.
Yeah.
So serve one another.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I love how kind of blunt I love the book of Ecclesiastes. We'll probably at some point do, if not a series here on Into the Word, but definitely an episode on Filthy Hope on Ecclesiastes. In Ecclesiastes 4, verse 5, it simply says, "The fool sits back and takes it easy. His sloth is slow suicide."
There we go.
Again, Ecclesiastes just coming in with some home truths.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah. So, do you want me to read this?
Yeah, I think so. It's a great quote of Rebecca Klondike DeYoung.
Yeah. So again, from this book, in this idea of service being the formation practice attached to sloth. Overcoming slothful tendencies requires us to face up to the sources of our own resistance to the demands of our relationship with God, rather than grasping at a way out or a ready diversion anytime we start to feel stretched or uncomfortable or just plain sick and tired of it all.
Yeah.
Love flourishes in a context of daily action and lasting commitment, and sloth flourishes in a context of conveniently easy escape.
Isn't that the case?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I love that, and I've used this analogy a whole bunch on both of these shows about like going to the gym.
Oh, yeah.
When it's easy, you're not doing it right.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, oh, great, this isn't heavy anymore.
Yeah, that was
awesome.
fun.
Put more weight on.
Up the plates, brother.
Yeah, literally. Like, so love in action actually requires it to be
Yes.
an action.
Yeah,
Not something we just slide
great.
back into, not
What-
something we downshift
Oh,
into.
how
Yeah.
cool is that?
Yeah.
That was a great example.
So there you go. I'd be keen to hear what
Yeah.
other people think about this
Yeah,
as well.
I need to get off this and go to the gym. Yeah.
Any final thoughts on sloth, Ness, before we
Oh,
we
I
wrap
don't want to
this
be
up?
one. I don't want to be one. Yeah, I'm not a fan, Just got to practice service and serving others. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's
And love.
yeah, it takes an active decision to step out and do love.
Yeah,
It's not something
yeah.
we just are.
Right.
We have to actually practice it.
The thing I find sad about these vices or these deadly sins is that as I prepare for each one, I go, oh, I've got too many examples. It's not great. It's very in your face, I find. Yeah. If you look at it honestly.
Yeah. So I mean, if like us, you're going through these and going, oh, geez,
Yeah.
this is a bit right. Go back and have a listen to one of the fruits of the spirit.
Yeah,
Again.
because it feels negative, doesn't it? It feels
Yeah.
it's a negative spin. It's only 10 minutes though, and I think we've done our bite size now, so let's go.
Absolutely. So if you want to contribute to this conversation, as always, email us down below, or you can join our Facebook group and chat to us about this. We'd love to hear any input that you guys have on this conversation around sloth, because like you say, it's a tricky one.
It is
a bit
tricky.
confronting.
Yep.
But important to have these conversations.
Yep.
And if you're struggling with it, find an act of service to do.
Yeah, it's
Get
good.
up and
Yeah.
get your hands busy and do something. I think that's just about
That's
us.
us.
Yeah, we'll be back next week for what's
Wrath.
our next one? Wrath.
Oh.
I'm going to find this one hard. aren't I?
I'm not. I'm not. I've got a million examples.
Well, this is one where I'm going to have too many examples. to pick from.
Good.
Yeah, yeah.
Excellent. We'll use your examples, I think, Jotty.
So we'll be back next week on Wednesday for more Into the Word with Wrath. And if you're a Filthy Hope listener, we'll be back on Tuesday. If not, right back here on Wednesday for Into the Word.
So good.
We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Have a good one.